Welcome back to Growth Colony. For those of you who are first-time listeners, you'll be hearing from B2B founders, CMOs, and marketing leaders. We chat about the newest and most effective tools and strategies in the B2B space. I'm Alex Hipwell with Xgrowth, and your co-host for this podcast, where we go candid with our guests' successes and failures, so you don't make the same mistakes. At least hopefully you don't. Let's dive in.
Thanks again for joining us on Growth Colony's podcast, the Australian B2B podcast right here. I'm Shaheen from Xgrowth, and today I'm joined by Lemma Khalek, the head of sales and marketing at Uptick, a startup right here in Melbourne. And today we're going to be talking with Lemma about how she and her team are leveraging LinkedIn to increase demand for Uptick and generate leads and generate demand. So on that note, Lemma, thanks a lot for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure. So Lemma, for those who might not be familiar with yourself and Uptick, can you give us a quick background on who Uptick is and what you've been doing in the past few years?
Yeah. So Uptick is a software startup. Well, now we call ourselves Scale-Up because we're going into that phase. And we are based in Abbotsford in Melbourne. We manage about just over 25% of all commercial buildings in Australia, and we mainly provide job management tools for the asset protection industry.
That's amazing. And what about yourself? Like, how did you get here? And tell us a little bit about yourself as well.
Yeah, I'm what I call myself a B2B marketer transitioning from corporate to startup world. So I only joined Uptick about a year and a half ago. And when I first started, I had one main job focus, which was lead gen, to build their inbound lead strategy, which didn't exist at the time. So for me, that was kind of a challenge coming from the corporate world where my job descriptions were a lot longer. You know, we did a bit of retention, acquisition, one-on-one comms. For me, I'm still kind of transitioning into that world of one single focus, which is to grow our customer base.
Gotcha. And it's always an interesting transition to see going from corporate to startup, where just like you said, you know, sometimes there's a whole range of things that you're managing in the corporate, and the startup becomes sometimes both focused but also broad in the sense of like there's a lot of things that you would have to do that you wouldn't end up doing corporate, right? There's always someone who's responsible for the small task, while in startup it's kind of like all on your shoulders. I know that one of the main channels that you and the team use at Uptick is LinkedIn. Now, how did you at the beginning kind of discover LinkedIn ads to be a potential growth channel for Uptick?
One of our first challenges in terms of starting an inbound lead generation campaign or inbound lead strategy was actually understanding our end user, understanding what kind of content would resonate with each of the different user groups. So this is where we found LinkedIn ads to be quite effective. You know, we were able to quickly put out some ads in market and quickly start to learn what messages are working and what messages are just not hitting the mark with our audience.
Gotcha. That's really good. I guess, you know, a lot of people don't use LinkedIn for that or ads in general to kind of discover the right messaging and what's going to work well with their audience and doesn't. But that's awesome that was kind of the starting point. You know, based on that, like how come LinkedIn ads turn out to be a good fit for you guys?
LinkedIn ads turned out to be a good fit for us because it really helped us in terms of how we structure our ads to prioritize the segments that we thought were going to give us the highest return on investment when we first started out. We needed to quickly work out which audience are going to be the decision makers and the leads that we're going to turn into paying customers versus those that are going to help us build our audience and drive our message further in the market. We also found it super helpful when we started to run our retargeting campaigns. So if someone had visited our site before, because of the nature of our product, it's quite comprehensive and different users will kind of benefit from our product in different ways. You'll find some people use it to grow their business. Some people use it just to improve the way they operate internally. And some people use it to kind of transform how they service their own customers through our self-service channels. So just based on that, we could not run one effective retargeting campaign based on users that have visited our site. This is where we found LinkedIn to be quite helpful in terms of completing that profile for our retargeting campaigns to say, you have visited our site before, but in terms of your job title, if you fall into these kind of job titles, then you might be looking at our product to kind of drive your business further. Therefore, a message around business growth might be the best message for you. Versus if you have visited our site before and you are a technician out on the road actually completing jobs, then maybe the best message for you might be a message about our app and how to use our app to improve your day-to-day work life. So in terms of LinkedIn as a channel, I think that retargeting around for B2B specifically, that segmentation around job titles and job functions really helped us in understanding what kind of customer persona we're speaking to.
Right. LinkedIn is really powerful when it comes to kind of slicing and dicing with their job title and industry capabilities, right? What I've seen with a lot of companies that we work with is that their kind of online advertising strategy and demand gen strategy changes over time as they learn more about a tool or their marketing matures. How has you and the team's kind of like LinkedIn strategy change over time, and how does that look like today?
LinkedIn ads is now part of our always on lead gen activity for our core products. So it's changed from being a test and learn framework to more of a huge part of what we do. 80% of our sales today come from inbound channels, and that LinkedIn is part of that. So probably the biggest change is the fact that it is an always on strategy. It's no longer campaign-based strategy. But we're also going back to the drawing board. We are launching 2 new products into 2 new industries. So the test and learn begins again. So we now know what's working for our existing core product. We now go back to where we were a year and a half ago when we first started using LinkedIn ads, and that's to work out how we're going to launch the new products to a new industry and a new audience.
Gotcha. That's very interesting. And maybe I'll ask another question on that. If somebody was to start, they wanted to run LinkedIn ads for their business, right? And they haven't really dealt with LinkedIn ads before. What would be your advice to them? Like, where should they kind of start and run LinkedIn ads?
My advice would be to probably start by mapping out some profiles of your existing customers. So if you have a couple of clients that are what you identify as some of your ideal customers, then I would look for them on LinkedIn, look at their profiles, look at the kind of industries that they've worked in the past, the kind of job titles that they have today, and more importantly, the kind of groups that they follow. Once you start to build that network of my users kind of share these member groups and share these skill sets and job titles, you can start to easily identify how big your audience is going to be on LinkedIn. And you don't have to run the ad. You can just start by building out an audience. Just for test and learn, build out the audience, add the groups and skills that you think your target audience might have, and see what kind of segmentation you get. You might get 20,000 users in Australia versus 100,000. And depending on how niche you are, you can start to think about how big of a pool you want to target.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Look, working with LinkedIn ads as long as you have, who would you say LinkedIn ads is best for? Like who would you say, you know what, for this kind of business, this works really well?
I think what would work the best is, one, having a niche product in the B2B market, having an audience that's quite specific, and also understanding exactly what your numbers are. So what is your current cost of acquisition versus what you might be able to get on LinkedIn, and your lead to customer conversion rate, and lifetime value of the client. You have to understand these three key metrics to work out how effective or how helpful LinkedIn ads can be for you. I know that, say, LinkedIn ads are quite expensive, and that can be true if you don't really understand the return on investment on your marketing spend. But if you have a clear idea of who your audience is, and you know that they are on LinkedIn, and you understand exactly how much it costs to acquire a lead on LinkedIn and how much value you get out of that client, you can quickly start to do the maths and work out how much money you can afford to spend on LinkedIn. You don't have to have a huge budget. You just have to have a very good targeted campaign. Gotcha.
Yeah, I think you're right. A lot of people, I think, jump on LinkedIn without a proper strategy and proper structure. And then the immediate reply to that is LinkedIn is too expensive. It's not a good fit for us. Or just like you said, they're selling a very cheap product. They're selling $100, or $20 a month kind of SaaS product. And that is going to be very hard to get a return on investment from LinkedIn. Tell us about some of the mistakes you've made when running LinkedIn ads.
We've made many mistakes. So over a period of 9 months, we ran 60 different campaigns with 348 different ads. So just based on the volume of ads we ran, we started to find some ads did extremely well, and some ads with just a small variation to the copy or the creative just did not give us any success. We started to experiment with, illustrations and animation versus real life photography. So some of these tests and experiments were costly. What we did try and do is expand too quickly. So once we've started to find some success in LinkedIn campaigns, we started to kind of want to grow our audience. So instead of having a target group of 20,000 people, we started to expand. We started to add more job titles. We started to add more groups to our targeting. And suddenly our pool was a lot bigger, but our return on investment was kind of going the other way. We quickly learned that volume is not the game for LinkedIn ads. So we started to run much smaller campaigns, sometimes targeting 500 users across Australia with the potential to get that one lead that will give us that return on investment that we were after. So probably one of the things that we did learn very quickly from running LinkedIn ads is that they're not necessarily scalable in the same way that other channels are. So if you are finding some success in terms of your lead generation, if you double that budget, you don't necessarily double the volume of leads that you're going to get. As a matter of fact, you might double the amount of leads that you get, but you don't necessarily convert them all into a paying customer. So probably that's one of the key learnings that we worked out early on, and that served us well in terms of how we moved forward with our LinkedIn strategies.
Right. Now, if you were going to launch a campaign today where you are not familiar with, or you're testing a product, right? Like, how many ads would you be running at any given time? Like a rule of thumb, what would you say? Hey, I would put up 5 ads or 20 ads or 100 ads to test.
I would say the more the better, as long as you know what you're testing for. So if you were to create 20 variations of the ads, you need to know before you put them out in market what each ad indicates. Is it the copy? Is it the creative? Is it feature-based, benefit-based? Is it targeting a decision maker versus an end user? So if you were to put out 20 or 100, as long as you know exactly what each ad is looking for, then that should be fine. My theory is the more the better. You can't under-test, you can't over-test, but as long as you do that, that set up that structure ahead of time.
One of the things that you said was testing images, real images versus illustrations. What was your finding on that one?
This sounds cliche, but people love faces. And not all faces, some faces are just do amazingly well. And I think it's people being able to relate to that face or that human behind that ad.
Lemma, this has been absolutely amazing Now, do you think there is anything that we didn't maybe cover that I didn't ask that you think is it will be valuable for us to cover also with regards to LinkedIn ads?
Probably one of the things that you and I spoke about earlier, which was account-based marketing. So one of the things that has changed for us from before we were running LinkedIn ads to now is how we deal with the new leads that do come through. So prior to LinkedIn ads, our kind of job, the marketing function, ended at providing the sales team with an MQL, someone who has filled out a form, they're interested in our product. In today's world, the way we handle LinkedIn leads is quite different, because with that lead comes the client's LinkedIn profile, the kind of activity that they've been doing on LinkedIn, the kind of groups that they're interested in. So I feel like with the LinkedIn ads, we've kind of merged our sales and marketing functions quite a lot. And that's how our kind of the organizational structure changed a little. A year and a half ago, there was a marketing team and a sales team. In today's world, we're just one big function.
Right. That's really cool.
Yeah, probably account-based marketing is one of the things that is needed to make sure that you can convert your LinkedIn leads.
That's awesome. I love that. Okay. Now, if people want to know more about you or about Uptick, what's the best way for them to find out?
I'm always happy to chat on LinkedIn. Send me a LinkedIn message, or if you'd like to reach out to me via email, that's also good.
Sounds good. All right. We'll include your email in the show note. On that note, Lemma, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been really amazing. And I think a lot of people who are going to be listening to it will find it super valuable. Thanks a lot, Lemma.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks so much for joining us on this episode. If you enjoyed it, we'd love it if you rate and review it on Apple Podcasts or your platform of choice. And for more B2B growth content, check out our website, growthcolony.org. Looking forward to seeing you in the next episode. Have a great day.